hummed as I adjusted my microscope. Another late night, but I was close. So close to a breakthrough that had eluded the biggest pharmaceutical companies for decades. Alexandra. Mom's voice carried down the stairs. The Carmichael party starts in an hour. Please tell me you're not still playing with your petri dishes. I carefully documented my latest results, knowing tonight's experiment could change everything. Can't make it, Mom. I'm at a critical phase. The click of her designer heels announced her arrival in my lab. She stood out against the scientific equipment in her evening gown, nose wrinkling at the sterile smell. Darling, Dr. Carmichael is the head of research at Palmer Pharmaceuticals. He could offer you a real position, not this. She gestured vaguely at my equipment. Hobby. My research isn't a hobby, I replied, noting another reaction result. And Palmer's approach to cellular regeneration is fundamentally flawed. A flawed approach that made them billions. Dad's voice boomed as he descended the stairs in his tuxedo. While you waste your PhD in this basement. I carefully adjusted the compound mixture, watching for the telltale color change. My approach works. Their method treats symptoms. Mine targets the cause. Sweetheart, Mom sighed, every researcher claims that. That's why pharmaceutical companies have entire teams, billions in funding. And zero cures, I interrupted, recording another measurement. Because they're following the wrong path. Dad picked up one of my research journals, frowning at the complex formulas. Alexandra, be reasonable. Palmer Pharmaceuticals has offered you a senior researcher position 3 times. Instead, you're burning through your trust fund on, what exactly is this? The future of medicine, I said quietly, watching the solution turn the exact shade I'd predicted. Perfect. The future is at Palmer, Mom insisted. Their stock hit another record high today. Meanwhile, you're hiding in a basement. My phone buzzed. A message from my patent attorney. Documentation complete. Filing tonight. I'm not hiding, I replied, carefully storing my samples. I'm succeeding. You just can't see it yet. See what? Dad scoffed. Empty test tubes and rejected grant applications? Palmer's research division has $30 billion in funding. You have something they don't, I smiled, checking the final readings. The correct approach. Mom's perfectly arranged features tightened with frustration. Alexandra, you're brilliant. Top of your class at Stanford Medical. You could be running Palmer's research division by now instead of this waste. The basement lab silence was broken by hurried footsteps above. My patent attorney's voice called down. Dr. Alexandra? Are you here? In the lab, I called back, watching my parents' startled expressions as James Burton, one of the country's top patent attorneys, burst in, clutching his tablet. It's done, he announced breathlessly. The patent office fast-tracked your application. It's official. You own the rights to the most revolutionary medical breakthrough of the century. Dad's dismissive expression froze. Patent. The cellular regeneration protocol, James explained excitedly. The one Palmer Pharmaceuticals just spent $13 billion developing their version of. He paused, grinning, which by the way infringes on your now-approved patent. Mom's Botox couldn't hide her shock as James pulled up the documentation. The preliminary valuation of the patent alone is $13.8 billion. And that's before licensing. But that's impossible, Dad stammered. Alexandra's been working alone in a basement. Working on the correct solution, I finished for him, pulling up my research data. While Palmer spent billions going down the wrong path, I found the right one. Their entire research division missed what I saw 3 years ago. The basement lab suddenly felt very different to my parents as they stared at the equipment that had just revolutionized modern medicine. Their daughter's hobby had just become the most valuable pharmaceutical patent in history. The Palmer board is meeting tonight, James continued. They just realized their entire research division has been rendered obsolete by. He smiled at me, a brilliant scientist working in her basement. I checked my phone as another message came in. Palmer's stock was already dropping as news of the patent filing spread through the industry. Now, I said, gathering my notes, if you'll excuse me, I have some very expensive lawyers to meet with. It seems Palmer Pharmaceuticals needs to discuss licensing terms. Behind me, I heard Mom whisper, all this time in the basement. She wasn't hiding, James replied. She was changing the world. Palmer Pharmaceuticals' executive boardroom buzzed with barely contained panic. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the New York skyline glittered, but nobody was admiring the view. Every eye was fixed on the screens displaying their plummeting stock price. I sat quietly at the end of the massive table, still wearing my lab coat, watching Dr. Carmichael, Palmer's legendary research director, pace the room. "This is preposterous," he muttered, running hands through his silver hair. "Our entire research division, $30 billion in development, outdated overnight?" "Not outdated," my patent attorney corrected smoothly. "Infringing. Dr. Alexandra's protocol was filed 3 years ago. Your entire approach is built on her foundational discovery." Mom and Dad sat in the corner, still in their party clothes, looking shell-shocked as they watched their country club friend unravel. "But she works in a basement," Dr. Carmichael exploded. "No team, no funding, no distractions," I interrupted quietly. "No corporate pressure to follow flawed methodologies. Just pure research focused on the right path." The screens flashed with another stock update. Palmer had lost $20 billion in market value since my patent was announced. The pharmaceutical industry was imploding as every major player realized their research was now obsolete. "The cellular regeneration mechanism you discovered last month?" I continued, pulling up my original research notes. "I documented it 2 years ago. While you were announcing your breakthrough to shareholders, I was already solving the problems you hadn't even encountered yet." Mom's hand flew to her throat as she watched Dr. Carmichael, the man she'd bragged about knowing at every dinner party, struggle to understand how her wayward daughter had outsmarted his entire research division. "Your phase 3 trials," I added, clicking through my presentation, "they're going to fail. Your approach triggers an autoimmune response you haven't detected yet. My protocol avoids that entirely." "Impossible," Dr. Carmichael whispered, but his face had gone pale. "Our tests are measuring the wrong markers," I finished. "Would you like to see the correct data? I have 3 years of successful trials documented." Dad's hands shook as he reached for his phone, no doubt checking his investment portfolio. He'd bought heavily into Palmer Pharmaceuticals, believing in their research. Now his daughter's hobby had just made those investments worth pennies on the dollar. "The licensing terms are quite reasonable," my attorney said, sliding documents across the table. "Dr. Alexandra is willing to allow Palmer to utilize her protocol, for appropriate compensation, of course." "Compensation?" Palmer CEO spoke for the first time. "Do you have any idea what this patent challenge will do to our company?" "Actually, I do," I replied, pulling up another spreadsheet. "I've modeled the exact impact. Your current research is worthless, your trials will fail, and without my protocol, you'll lose the government contracts next quarter." The boardroom erupted in chaos as executives realized the full implications. Years of research, billions in development, all rendered obsolete by a scientist they'd repeatedly dismissed. "However," I continued calmly, "with a licensing agreement, Palmer could be first to market with a working treatment. Your choice." Dr. Carmichael slumped into his chair, staring at my research data. "All those times we offered you a position. You wanted me to follow your path," I said. "I needed to forge my own." Mom's perfectly composed facade cracked as she watched the industry titans scramble to salvage their company by partnering with her basement-dwelling daughter. "The licensing fee," my attorney announced, "will be $8 billion plus royalties. Or you can try to fight the patent and watch your company collapse when your trials fail publicly." The CEO's hand shook as he reached for the licensing agreement. Behind him, the screens showed Palmer's stock finding its first support level of the night, just on the news that they were in negotiations with me. "One more thing," I added, standing up. "The research division needs new leadership. Someone who understands the correct approach to cellular regeneration." Dr. Carmichael's face reddened as he realized what was coming. "I believe," I smiled, "you've already got my resume on file. Though you might want to update the position from senior researcher to director of research and development." As the lawyers began the paperwork, I caught my parents' eyes. Dad's confident smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of astonished respect. Mom's social climbing suddenly seemed trivial compared to her daughter's revolution in medical science. "Alexandra," Dr. Carmichael said quietly, "I was wrong about you. We all were. No, I corrected him, gathering my research notes. You were wrong about the science. Being wrong about me was just a symptom. The morning sun streamed through my basement lab windows as I packed up my equipment. Not to store it away, but to move it to my new state-of-the-art research facility. Palmer's former R&D floor was now mine. Mom stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking different than she had at yesterday's party. Humbled. I never really looked at your work before, she admitted, picking up one of my journals. I was too busy worrying about what people would think. And now? I asked, carefully wrapping my microscope. Now they're all talking about my brilliant daughter who revolutionized medicine from her basement. She smiled weakly. Every woman at the club wants their daughter to be like you. Dad appeared behind her, holding up the morning's Wall Street Journal. My picture was on the front page. Basement breakthrough. How one scientist reshaped modern medicine. The patent, he said softly. It's not just about money, is it? This could help millions. That's why I did it, I replied, picking up my latest research notes. Not for the billions or the vindication. For the patients who needed someone to find the right answer, not just the profitable one. As we climbed the stairs from my basement lab one last time, Mom touched my arm. I'm sorry we called your research useless. Don't be, I smiled, checking messages from my new research team. Sometimes the most important breakthroughs happen when nobody believes in them but you. The morning light caught my framed patent on the wall. The document that had transformed medicine forever. Sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in gleaming corporate labs, but in quiet